So we've got a few things that we've got to do, Dwayne, right off the top that I usually always forget till the end. But welcome to the Bear Grease Render. There's a MeatEater live tour that's coming up. A couple of housekeeping things we got to talk about first. MeatEater live tour coming in December. Tickets go on sale next week.
Oh, really?
Yes, tickets go on sale next week.
When do they announce the dates? Do you know? You got any insider trading info on that?
Next week, which would be the 20s of September.
Okay.
Whenever that week is.
Okay.
And we're going to Birmingham, Nashville, Tennessee, Birmingham, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, Fayetteville, Arkansas, which Bear Newcomb's going to be.
I'll be at that
one of our guests. And there's another secret guest that we're not going to say who's going to be there that I promise you're going to be glad is there. And Dallas, Texas, and Houston, Austin. So seven cities, 7 nights in a row. And if you go to the MeatEater.com/tour, you can sign up for an email that will allow you to get first dibs at the tickets. That's the way this works. So, at some point they'll just go on sale to the general public and you can just go and buy them. But if you go to that MeatEater, the MeatEater.com/tour, put your email in there, they'll send you a deal where you can order them before. And I really think a lot of these shows are going to sell out.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's in the MeatEater live tour. We've done it several years and it's really fun. Steve Ranella, Giannis Putelis, myself, Randall, and Brent Reeves. Did I say Brent already?
No.
And every place has a special guest, and it's like a variety show. There's going to be music. There's going to be trivia. We're going to give away a bunch of stuff. There's going to be storytelling. There's going to be audience participation and contests. It's a hoot. It's a hoot. We've done it all over the country, and it's a ton of fun, and they're all different. Everyone's different. But I'm very, very much so believing that the South is going to come in
the South
strong.
will rise again.
Strong.
Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
The South will rise again.
I didn't say that, but the South will dominate the owl hooting contests that we have. Typically, we have an owl hooting contest. I haven't heard that we're going to do that, so I'm speculating.
Here's my question for you. What city's going to have the best owl hooters?
I think Texas won't, but all the others will.
Somewhere in Tennessee would be my guess.
I'd say Alabama and Tennessee. Fayetteville, Arkansas will be it'll be at the lower tier of southern states.
Wow.
It will, man. I mean,
that was a real kick in the shin.
But it's just the truth. I mean, I'm Arkansas is, I mean, we're like in this part of Arkansas, like pretty close to not being in the South. I mean, it's just the truth, as much as I hate to say it.
True. It is true.
And our turkey population for the last decade, almost a half generation, has been so low that I think fathers aren't teaching their kids how to owl hoot.
Wow.
It's hard. Now, I taught my son how to owl hoot.
That's right.
Yep. So that's just my prediction. I mean, we're going to be way better. Like last year we were in like San Diego, Sacramento, Portland, Boise.
And I was at the show in California, in Anaheim,
California.
And the owl hooting contest was pretty abysmal.
I mean, listen, I love those people so much, and it's kind of like asking. It would kind of be like if somebody, came.
No offense to the Anaheimers,
this part of Arkansas, and was like, "Who's really good at playing soccer?" And we were like, "Well, we don't really play a lot of soccer," or my generation,
right? And
it'd be like, "Well, kick this ball and let's see how you do." And it's like, "Well, we don't really do that." That's kind of what it's like going out there asking them to owl hoot,
Right.
But it's my prediction that the worst owl hooter at those places would probably win in any of those cities out there. Yeah. But it's not their fault. It's not a character.
Their fault.
It's not a character judgment. But so looking forward to the MeatEater live tour.
Whitetail week.
I can't wait to introduce my guest. I'm holding out.
I'm
holding
afraid
the
you're
people
going to point at me and say, "Give me your best bar down." I'm over here shaking like
That's a great idea.
I have done them, and I've been woo. You talk about an introduction.
Well, okay. Well, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to your barred owl, Dwayne Hada. Hey, this Whitetail Week is coming up at MeatEater. Josh, when is MeatEater's Whitetail Week?
September 29th through October 5th.
Great. I want to show you the new. Look at this, man. This is really cool. This is the new and improved Acorn Grunter from Phelps. I truly believe it's the best deer call ever made, but it's made out of Osage this year. Osage orange.
For real?
Yeah. So it's a dual call. It's a buck grunt and a doe bleed in one call. Inhale, exhale. That's what I asked Jason to make 3 years ago. First year we made them out of oak, which is the only year we're ever going to do it. They're like
collector's edition.
Yeah, man. And the oak was a little bit unstable.
Oh.
And then we made one out of
there was an acrylic model.
Acrylic. We made one that was acrylic, and I really like the acrylic one. I mean, it's a lifetime call, but the sound was a little different.
Yeah.
This year we went to Osage, burnt Osage. So it's they burn it, and then it's got just like a matte finish on it. But and so you can.
That's slick.
If you blow, I mean, there's one side where you blow, grunt, suck for a bleat. You flip it around and it's opposite. Blow for a bleat, suck for a grunt. And you can adjust the reeds and everything. Right. But
can you adjust the reeds on both?
Yeah. You just take it apart.
Check that out
and adjust the reeds. And I mean that's pretty common amongst deer calls there. But
would you say that if you don't have that call, you probably won't kill a deer this year?
No. There's a lot of great calls out there. I'm not even gonna go that low. It's just like anything. It's just like duck hunting. It's just like turkey calls. I mean, a lot of grunt calls will call in a deer. This is just a cool call.
One thing I just noticed about that call. Hold that up for a second. Is that you can put the lanyard on either side so it dangles so that it's a predictable when you pick it up.
That's right. That's the idea. That good point, Josh, is that you basically we thought about putting like a word on either side so you would know, but it was just a little complicated. You just make the call adjusted the way you want. So if you want your lanyard on like
when you blow
the blow grunt side, But I use a doe bleat all the time. Like guys always talk about grunt calls. I've called in way more deer with a doe bleat. I personally have, just the way that I'm hunting. And I'm also oftentimes in the early season trying to call in a doe to shoot her. And so a buck grunt on October 1st to a doe is not most likely going to be that appealing to her. But, man, you bleeded a doe out there at 50, 60 yards on October the 1st around here. Fair chance she's going to come check you out.
I don't know if you know this, but October the 1st happens to fall during MeatEater's Whitetail Week.
Are you sure?
The burnt Osage looks good on that.
Doesn't that look good?
It looks really nice.
Well, this is a great time to introduce our guest, Duane Hada from Yellville, Arkansas.
Sir, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. This is the first time that we've met, but
yes,
you know my dad.
I do. From way back in my days in Mena.
Okay.
Do we have this right? Yeah, with the right person and everything. Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I taught school down in Mena down there and loved it and knew of your dad anyway. So.
Okay. And then you've met Bear in recent years.
Yes, I have. What an introduction. You've got a fine young man there, I tell you. He's helped me with the boys that I do with my group, and I love seeing youth that are on purpose and got skills, and easy. My pleasure, man.
Well, so give me a general introduction of what you do. I know you have. Well, I'm gonna let Josh do this. Josh, how would you introduce Duane Hada to somebody that didn't know?
Duane Hada is a fly fisherman, an artist, a mentor. I know his son-in-law, so he's a great father-in-law. I mean, he's a Renaissance man. He's an outdoor Renaissance man.
Traditional archer.
Traditional archer.
I love that. Yeah.
Traditional archer.
Yeah. That's how I would introduce Duane Hada. Just an incredible artist. We have a beautiful rainbow trout license plate for the state of Arkansas. He made that piece of artwork for our license plate and everything. So, yeah.
So but you live on the White River a couple hours.
I actually live closer to the Buffalo River, but I have a business, which is Rivertown Gallery. That's my art studio, and I have a gallery that's open to the public, and that's in the Mountain Home area near the White River. So, but I'm very familiar with the White River and all, but my home is tucked out on what they call Pendleton Ridge, which is down near Rush, Arkansas, kind of going down Highway 14 south. Okay. So it's a 35-mile drive to town every day, but I love it.
Okay. So town for you is Mountain Home?
Yellville, really.
Yellville.
Yeah. I'm closer to Yellville, but my business is in Mountain Home just because there's people in Mountain Home. There's not very many people.
So what have you done? What have you done career-wise? You've told us you're a teacher.
I started off. I do have a degree in art education from UCA, and my first teaching position was in Mena, Arkansas, and I stayed there almost 5 years.
What years were you there?
1981 to 85, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
Or 85 to anyway. Early 80s, yes, and loved it. That's if I didn't live where I live now, I'd probably live back down there. I love it because it's so wild and access to the mountains and things that I love anyway. But I've always been an outdoorsman, an angler, and fly fishing was something that was just big in my life and loved it. And so I got an opportunity. I was teaching some fly fishing classes for Rich Mountain Community College, of all things.
Yep.
And see, these guys from Fort Smith were coming down, taking the class from me. And they were opening a business up there in Fort Smith. And they kind of dangled a carrot in front of me and said, how much do you want to teach the rest of your life? You want to do what you really love to do? And gave me an opportunity. And I have a understanding why. She said, I'll go anywhere that you feel God's leading you, but make sure, know. And so I jumped and took it, and it's all made a difference. And so
what was that business?
The business was actually being a fly fishing guide. I worked in Heber Springs, Arkansas. We and then we'd go back and forth between Fort Smith, and I do a lot of work with that group there. And then eventually we came on up to the White River, and I guided heavily there for years anyway, about 32 years as a professional fly fishing guide. But along the way, I always did my art, but it was kind of interesting how my guiding was here. My art was just kind of for a few clients and that type of thing. And then as I've gotten older and everything, the fly fish guiding business has kind of switched, and the art business has really taken off. And that's just been an amazing blessing for me to be able to make my living with what I love to do. And my son-in-law now has really taken over the guiding aspect, and he's young and he's energetic and good at it. So it's been an amazing. Couldn't have scripted it better for what I do anyway. But art and fly fishing, those two things as far as for the income, and but everybody always says, the definition of a successful artist is a artist whose spouse has a good job, So thank God my wife was teaching school, and because it's not easy. I mean, it's but I am blessed to, I think now, not that I've arrived or anything, but at least it's making a good living for me, and I enjoy that, and I feel very blessed to it.
Describe your art to us.
Well, my art is my passion. So if you know me in the hunting and the fishing and being an Ozarks boy, and that's, I had a professor in college, he said, never waste your time painting what you don't have a passion for. And that makes a lot of sense, because I did a commission painting for somebody the other day, and he wanted a duck hunting scene, and I'm like, I'm not duck hunting right now, and now if you told me in January to do it and everything, I'd probably have my full soul and passion into it. So I paint for me. If I like driving up here, I see these beautiful mountains. I got here early. I walked up down West Fork on the White and everything, and just seeing the way the light's playing on the water and watching some smallmouth swim around and various things. So I start getting that building concept and inspiration within me, and I can't rest till I paint it out. So those are my best paintings, is when it comes from truly me. That's my artistic voice. And my artistic voice, when you come in my gallery, it shouldn't take you long to figure out who Dwayne Hada is. He likes smallmouth bass. He likes the Ozark Mountains. He likes the birds and the deer and the wildlife and things like that. So I paint what I know, because you're going to paint best what you know, and what you have a passion for, you're going to put your soul into that.
Would you say the paintings that I've seen of yours, which I've certainly not seen all of them, but they're big, they're colorful, at least your fish.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like they're really zoomed in to like. I mean, you
Sure.
might have
I've been painting a
4
lot.
foot wide and have like the whole image be of the fish, not like a fish jumping out of the water with a big landscape. I mean, maybe that's just a bias of what I've seen.
I kind of go through stages, I guess you might say. I've got everything from very small paintings to huge murals that I'm doing a lot of now on big buildings, 60, 70 foot by 20 foot, So, but as far as my hanging canvases, that type of thing, I've got one down at the restaurant in Cotter, Arkansas. They commissioned me to do. That's an underwater scene, and it's basically if you just stuck your head under the water in the White River and looked around the logs and saw a big brown kind of holding in his little place, and some rainbows, and then we have cutthroat and a few brook trout and that type of thing. So it's kind of that grand slam of trout species in the White River, and it's just sort of a little cross section of in the feel of water moving, and there's crawdads and sculpins and all that living environment in there. So that's but a lot of my paintings are above the water too. I love how the mist rises off the river in the mornings, and just that lone angler out there in his world. I mean, there's nothing more peaceful than being out there and just the rhythm of casting and searching for fish and in the river and that type of thing. So I identify with that, so I paint that, and then thank God, customers walk through and like, wow, that's
connect to it.
You bet. So that's what's going on there.
I saw one of your paintings that I connected to immediately was I can't remember the name of it. It's like Ozark Flush or Ozark Quail Hunt.
Oh yeah.
And it's two guys with their backs. You can see their backs, and there's a dog pointing, and there's a covey rise.
Yep.
But what stood out to me was the chimney.
Yes.
There's an old
And that's a real place.
stone chimney in the background where the home has rotted away.
Yep.
And only the chimney remained. The reason that's meaningful to me is those are my favorite places out in the national forest, and when you're just out in the mountains and you see an old standing chimney.
Yeah.
And just to stand there and just think, who lived here?
You bet. The stories
The
they can tell.
kids that were raised here, why did they come here? Why did they leave? How hard was their life? I mean, it's like this cascade of questions that probably will never be answered. And Dwayne, before you leave, I'm going to have to show you, I built a rock chimney on the other side of my house that sets out from my house that acts as an outdoor fire pit.
Yeah.
But it stands alone, and it was built to look like an old home place, essentially. It was just like a hat tip to the Ozarks.
I'm all about that. I love it. Yeah. I know the place and that painting, and it's amazing because a guy that walked in, I love this when, I've got hundreds of paintings on the wall in the gallery, but when somebody comes in, just like a bird dog going on point, and when that guy looked at that painting, just started walking to it, I knew I had him, and it was that he connected, and I mean, he just walked right to it, took it off the wall, and just, I mean, he just like looking at it, just mumbling to himself, walked to the cash register, and
didn't need a sales pitch.
No, the painting sold itself.
No, that was the chimney painting.
Yes, with the.
Now, do you have reprints of that or no?
I did not. I don't. I feel like an original is something. I will print some because I know the market and all that, and I've got a bear print that I've did for the National Bear Festival that they do over in North Carolina. Okay, they had me come as the artist, and I painted one, so I put that in print for longevity and more affordable pieces.
Yeah.
And I do things. The VRBO business and the White River lodges has boomed, so I've got trout paintings, all over in them, and those are prints, But I feel like when you buy a painting, you want, it's like buying a homemade bow or something. You want
original painting.
You bet.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah,
because I was planning on trying to figure out how to buy a print of that Ozark Covey Rise.
Maybe you can call that guy and try to get in his will.
Now that I've said I like it, he'll jack the price up. Too late. Take that out. And then let's get the number of that guy.
Yeah. So anyway, but I paint. Something has to, when it triggers me, that painting just starts building into me, and I just can't rest till I just have to get in the studio and paint.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
There's so art truly is a gifting in the very truest nature of what we conceive as a human gift, like
Okay.
personal capacity that isn't taught. It's just like you either have it or you don't. But gifting can be sculpted over time and developed and grown. my question to you as how much have you progressed in your actual skill as a painter? So how much of it is skill that was developed as a craft versus just the natural, raw bone, God-given talent?
I get asked that a lot, and I struggle with that because I'm all about God's gifts, okay, and obviously He instilled something in my brain, my makeup, my uniqueness. That Dwayne is that 5-year-old kid that couldn't leave a chalkboard alone, had to turn over his Sunday school bulletin and draw all over the back of it, had to, if it was a blank piece of paper, I never did coloring books. I don't know that I've ever colored in a coloring book as a kid. I always had to have a blank piece of paper to create. So there's something going on here that maybe is a little different from some of the other kids in that. Now, my mom still has some drawings I did at 5 and 6 years old, and for a 5 or 6 year old kid, they're pretty good, okay? I'm a little better today, okay, because I have worked hard and I have strong passion, and I have surrounded myself with some other artists that I have fed off of to perfect my craft, okay? And all of us do that, I think. So to say Dwayne is a prodigy born walking out and I could paint this if I lived in a cave somewhere and never was exposed to other artists, or so you do. And I'm seeing this right now. The young man that works with me, one of my CTO boys, Zach, an amazing artist. He never knew he could do that, okay? But he's working with me, and he's a very quiet young man, but he's always over my shoulder watching. And then one day he just starts painting. And I'm like, whoa. And it's good. And then I start encouraging him, and so it can be taught. I feel like good drawing, realistic drawing, okay? Now, there's a lot of things out there called art today that, whatever that definition is, but I'm into realism. I live in a real world, and I feel like if you're going to paint a white-tailed deer, you better look like a white-tailed deer, okay?
Yeah.
So you better know them, and all those kind of things, put in the right environment and get the body, and white-tail is different than a mule deer than a black-tailed or key deer and all that kind of thing. So if you're going to paint that, you need to know something about that. But your eye and your hand, okay, and this is what I have taught, because I taught even at ASU and Mountain Home some drawing classes, and I'd get people come in, especially ladies that were older in life, and they're like, we used to always wanted to paint, but I had raised family and all this, or wanted to draw, so they'd come and take a class just as a hobby. And my goodness, suddenly it's just like putting gas to the flame. It's within them, and I think there's a lot of people it is. And it's left brain, right brain functions, okay? So if you can teach your hand to record what the eye sees, you can develop drawing technique. What you now do is you take your history, your passion, your creativeness, and put that in with it, and no telling what you can do. So it can be taught, but you've got to put that passion and soul in to really be a artist that shows his individual. You should be able to go in and look at somebody's sketchbook and immediately tell something about them. And then when you come into my gallery, you're not going to see wild, weird abstracts and things like that. You're going to see Duane Hada's soul out there for you to walk around in and see what I love. Okay. And I paint for myself, really. And I just hope that enough people come in that can identify that, like that guy did on the quail painting of the chimney, he connected exactly just as you did. And thank goodness there's enough people out there.
He just beat me to it.
Yeah, he did. I might could do another one. I don't know. It's hard and people ask me, they say, well, just paint me another one. I'm like, that's like
you need a different.
Yeah. It's like, that beautiful bow with that wood, to duplicate that would, because it had to be.
Oh, I've got the perfect analogy, Dwayne, of what it's like.
Okay.
They say that a memory is actually just a recollection of the prior time you had that thought.
Wow.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying to.
I'm
pondering
see,
that.
You see an image, you have an experience.
Right.
The next time you tell that story, you're actually remembering the real thing.
Wow.
But the next time you tell it, there's some equation where you're actually just saying what you said before.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you understand?
I got it.
And so by the time you're an old man, that's the reason stories get so distorted.
Sure.
And why you might be talking to your grandpa and he tells you a story that he is adamant happened just this way and it didn't happen that way at all. It's because the story
He's
shifted
remembering a
over
memory.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, for real, that is the genesis of many of the myths and things that have happened. Is just the fallacy of our ability to recollect. So painting, trying to duplicate a painting would be like painting what you remembered of the painting.
My painting's in the moment, and
it's got to be an original.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand. I understand. I like it.
Good.
Josh or Bear, do y'all have any? Y'all know Dwayne better than me. I mean, there's plenty that we could talk about, but now, what were you doing with Dwayne? Bear is a grown man now,
sure.
So he just does stuff. Doesn't even talk to. He doesn't even tell me what he's doing anymore. I just see him show up and do stuff. What were you doing with Dwayne?
I'm trying to think. I think I was over there with
now.
Are
you remembering the actual memory, or
no,
are you remembering
the memory
of the memory?
I know
How do you know
exactly.
it?
We went
Apparently
smallmouth
not.
fishing that night, and you were just
we were night fishing with Kyle Veet with the Ozark podcast.
Oh, okay, with the
We went
Ozark
over
guys.
there. Yeah.
So you met him through the Ozark.
Was that our
podcast
first
guys.
meeting? I think.
Yeah,
Fly fishing, I hope.
Yeah.
we were
definitely.
night
Okay.
fishing.
No spinning and sinning.
I had a guy leave a comment this week on one of the podcasts, and he said using a bait caster or a spinning rod is akin to your preacher telling you the gospel. Using a fly rod is like the Lord Jesus telling you about himself.
Oh wow, wow!
Dang.
Ooh.
What an
Well,
analogy.
fly fishing. If you go back to I got a fly rod when I was 9 years old. Okay, living in Boone County, Arkansas. Fly fish Crooked Creek and Bear Creek all the time, and I didn't know anybody that fly fished. There was one old man in our community that had done a little bit, and but he also told me before spinning rods, that's how everybody in the Ozarks fished. And if you go look at those old photos up at Bass Pro Shop and that type of thing in those old John boats, a lot of them fly rodding, and they used to have, there were some old Ozark lures for fly rods, like the Hildebrandt spinner with a pork rind on the back of a holly grove. That was an Ozark, that was very effective. And the water hag, okay.
Was that supposed to be the other one you said, was it supposed to be a crawdad?
No, it's just a
minnow?
big, it's basically like what we use as spinnerbait today. It's just something that made vibration and noise and movement. And,
Okay.
they just hit it out of reflex more than anything. But down the Ouachita's, the old timers down there, that's where I came and learned what a water hag was. And it was in the old float tubers, down on the Cossatot and the Mountain Fork River.
Yes.
They all fish with a water hag, or they'd use live grasshoppers a lot.
Now, what is a water hag?
A water hag is basically, it was like a foam long bug with rubber bands sticking out the side of it. It's just basically a topwater. Probably ate it for a big grasshopper or something like that.
I'm going to name a mule that.
At water hag.
Water hag. That'd be a good.
Yeah.
Water hag.
Yeah, that was
name.
that was and people still use them anyway. But anyway, for me, so for fly fishing, river ran through it and all that, and and I worked in the fly fishing industry, and there's a whole, I guess I can say this, sort of a yuppie crowd that wanted the image, the Orvis image or whatever, and that's great. And more power to them, and they're out there and they're doing their thing. I came at it totally as an artist, okay? Because I remember in 5th grade sitting there looking at Field and Stream magazine, or Outdoor Life it was back then, and seeing these beautiful pictures of these Colorado mountains and everything, catching these beautiful native cutthroats and everything. And so I'd go down to Crooked Creek with a fly rod that I got for my 9th birthday. My parents, they called an uncle of ours that lived up in Michigan, what, the boy wants a fly rod. What's a fly rod? And they found one and got it to me. And of course, it came with no instruction. I beat the water to a froth in front of me and behind me and everything. But I was determined to fish that way because as an artist, I'd pick up fox squirrels that I'd shot and my mom's chickens and wrap feathers and and it was cool to me to make something to go out and trick a fish with it. Now I still fished with crawdads and minnows because I wanted to learn, and I had an older brother and I had to beat him. So there was sort of a handicap, somewhat with fly fishing. But as I got older, the confidence level and the skill levels, and as I got around other wonderful fly fishers, Dave Whitlock came into my life, and my goodness, what a mentor for me with his amazing skills, and others, and just never wanting to not learn. Every time every day the river teaches you something if you let it. And so I just absorbed everything. But for me, fly fishing was just the art, kind of like traditional shooting a bow. It's just smooth, it's fun, it's pure. That's what fly fishing is for me. So I don't come at it from a status I come at it from more of an artist and the satisfaction. Okay, I've caught fish every way you can imagine. Okay, from noodling to limb lines to snagging, whatever. Okay, and it's all fun and it all produces, but there's nothing as satisfying as catching, at least for me, and a lot of people, that's why they identify with fly fishing. There's a certain piece about it, but there's also that satisfaction in coming with tricking a fish with an artificial, especially one that you made. Yeah. And then the rods are just so vibrant.
It's a visceral feeling.
It is. There's something spiritual almost about it. And I don't know. It's just it's a different type of fishing, but you can gain and push your skill level. And I've been very lucky. My fly fishing has allowed me. I had a business at one time where I was able to travel and put together. I have literally fished in a lot of places all around the world for a lot of different species, saltwater species, and some of the famous places in Europe and even places like that. It allowed me to coach the U.S. first youth fly fishing team, and I'm a silver medalist. The first silver medalist anyway for the U.S. Yes,
in the Olympics.
Yes,
there's an Olympic fly fishing.
Well, it's its own Olympics. It's called the Phipps Moosh Fly Fishing World Tournaments. Anyway, that they hold in different countries. The first time that I did this, we were in the country of Wales, and then we went to Ireland, and it was amazing. So. It's been.
Now, is that what took you around the world fly fishing?
Yes.
It was coaching this team.
That was part of it, and just working through businesses. Anyway, I was kind of a trip host. I'd advertise trips and go. I can't afford to do all that, so you get a group of people that can go, and that's how you get to go. So it's been awesome. I've been to Christmas Island a couple times, way almost to Australia. I've fly fished in England and Wales and Ireland. And
is there if you asked me this question as a hunter, I could come up with an answer, even though it wouldn't be perfect. If you could tell about one fish you caught, anywhere in the world, which one would you tell? It's the only story you get for the rest of your life.
I've got two.
I knew it. I knew he was going to do that too.
And the reason, one of them, I took some guys to Belize one time, and they have a rare genetic, it'd be like a piebald deer or a black squirrel or something like that. That's pretty rare. They have something that are called a golden bonefish, and they figure it's probably 1 in 5,000 bonefish. And the lodge that I went through, they would give you a free trip if you caught one. And I caught one. And it was amazing, and it's like the normal bonefish, but it's like you dipped him in a champagne gold orangish coloration.
Wow,
and
really
unique.
Interesting.
Yeah, very unique. But they didn't give me a free trip because I was hosting that trip. And they said, "Well, your trip's already free." They weaseled out. They weaseled out in every way they could. But I went back again the next year and took some people. But so that was kind of unique. Anyway.
Now, what country was that in?
That is Belize.
So it's an ocean fish.
Yes, but it's in shallow water. That is the most hunting of fishing, because you are stalking, and if you step wrong and you make a wrong step, they're gone. I mean, they're in shallow water to avoid sharks, and they're feeding with their tails up. So you're looking for
you can see it spot and stalk.
You would love it. Everything's spot and stalk, and you've got to be a good caster. You've got to hit about a foot in front of them, and usually at some distance. So it's a skill builder. And when you hook them, it's about like trying to stop a car out here on the freeway.
My son-in-law is from Antigua, and I did some fishing in Antigua and hooked a couple of them and just couldn't get them to the
boat. They break your line?
Yeah, they just take off, and they'll pull a boat. They're about this big.
But they're built for speed.
Yeah.
They have a big forked tail.
Bonefish.
They outrun
an
barracudas.
albino bonefish.
Yeah, basically a
melanistic
reverse melanism probably. What's that word?
Albinistic or
there's a word for it anyway. That's kind of unique when
I don't know.
When it lacks the melanism. Anyway, the other one is just good old home Buffalo River. My biggest smallmouth.
I actually said I hope his second one is something at home.
It's always going to be the Buffalo River.
Flip Pallet just passed away, and Dave Whitlock just passed away not too long ago. Great. You talked about the Mount Rushmore of fly fishing. These are two chiseled faces that'll be there. And they were people, especially Dave Whitlock, very dear in my life anyway. And he wrote one time in Fly Fisherman magazine that people asked him that question. And greatest, and I don't want this to sound bragging or whatever, but he said his favorite fishing experience would be the lower Buffalo River Wilderness area with a fly rod and having me paddle that canoe down there with him.
Oh, wow.
Like, wow.
That's special.
That is special. But so I got to do that with my son-in-law and a dear friend of mine, Ben Levin, who's a fly fishing guide, who guided with me when he was 14 years old. And he's from over here in the Mulberry region where he grew up, and great young man. And so we're together on this float trip, and this very first bend in the river down there, and I've got a fly that I tied, and I've got it down deep around a boulder, and all of a sudden it gets solid, and I come up, and I know it's a good one because that rod's just dancing around the front of the boat and around, and I'm like, and all of a sudden it shoots up right in between our two canoes, and this mental picture of this 20-inch golden brown, I tried every way to make him 4 pounds, and he wouldn't. But he's in my mind, he's 4. But he's big.
That's a big fish
It's
for
an
around
old
here.
fish, you bet. And when I got my hands on that thing, I just shook like holding a big buck, by the horns. Because that was my life right there, and to do that in front of two young men that they always want to catch one like that, and I did it. I was the stud for that day. Anyway, and I got to look at that and just to hold that fish, and I'm like, man, you're going to kill it if you don't. But just to look it in the eye and just think everything it took for that smallmouth to go from fry to, that biologists tell me that fish was probably a minimum of 16 years old. They live long lives. A lot of people don't understand them with smallmouth bass, how fragile. I'm really working with the game and fish now, trying to just with the biologists and everything, because they need to make regulations if we're going to have big smallmouth in numbers.
Yeah.
We kill them off faster than they can grow is the simple thing. So we need to be very protective. So I eased him back in, and my soul just went with that fish as he went down in the rocks, and I just pulled back and I said, I'm done. We got a 3-day trip. I said, you boys, I'll paddle the canoe. And no one else caught one quite.
That's great.
They caught some 17 inchers, but nobody came close on that whole trip. Anyway, 3-day lower buffalo. So that fish will always be etched in my
What
heart.
year was that?
It's been about 5 years ago. So fairly recent. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah. So of all the places I've been, I think, they say there's no place like home. You can't take the Ozarks out of the boy, and that's, to me, I think we have some of the most beautiful and unique fishing, that you can have probably anywhere right here in the Ozarks. So give me one last day, I'll probably,
stay home.
I'll stay home. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Dwayne's also an incredible fly tire. I've got a story. I fished the Odyssey. So there's a fly fishing tournament where it's an all species tournament. The goal is to catch the most number of species. And Duane Hada makes everyone look like a joke when he competes in this thing.
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
I fished that, and then for my daughter's 16th birthday, we did a family trip to Hawaii.
Oh wow!
And we went to Kauai, and I wanted to do some fly fishing out there.
Sure.
And so I called a guide and I said, I'd really like to go bone fishing. He said, well, the bone fishing's not real great right now, but we can go smallmouth fishing. Yeah. And I said, smallmouth fishing in Kauai? And he's like, sure. So
you can trout fish in Hawaii. Even
I set it up, my wife and I, to go fly fish. Now, mind you, this is like 3 days after the Odyssey. Mm-hmm. And we meet the guide, super nice guy. We trek through the jungle. We're standing in front of this probably 120-foot waterfall in this deep pool, beautiful. And he pulls out the fly rod, and he hands it to me, and he reaches in his fly box, and he pulls out a fly and ties it on. And I look at it, and I said, is that a Hayda creek crawler?
Oh, my goodness.
And he goes, yeah, man, this fly is awesome. I said, I just fished with Duane Hada 3 days ago. He's like, are you kidding me?
Now, would he have bought that from Dwayne, or did he make it?
It's a production fly.
I sold the rights to that fly several years ago to
Wow. So you have
I have a royalty pattern out there that I get a check every so often when they, it's not a whole lot.
Yeah, so I'm in Kauai. Yeah. The guide's tying on a Hayda creek crawler, and I just
Hayda creek crawler. That's a good name.
Yeah. You know where that fly was first tied? In the art classroom in Mena High School with Tim Strother.
Is that right?
He was one of my students. He would come in during his lunch period, and I kept a fly tying bench set up in there, and I would use this as an art instructional thing, and I would have boys that come in to eat their lunch and watch me tie flies, and I would teach them there. And Tim Strother was one of those young men. But the very first ever creek crawler was designed right there in
Wow. And it was your design.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I've tied a few. I've tied a few myself that look horrible. I just wish they didn't take so long to tie one.
Yeah,
they're very intricate.
There's some guys
very
out
intricate.
there.
Keith Reeves.
Keith Reeves ties.
Is the man.
Someday I'll.
Our buddy Keith Reeves down in Fort Smith.
Yeah.
He ties
He
them.
and Brandon Bells and my son-in-law probably tie 3 of the best ones. If you want an artistic one, I mean, anybody can tie one that'll catch a fish. You know, but they take it to another level.
Every time I hear the name Keith Reeves, which I've never actually met Keith Reeves, but he seems like a wonderful person.
He is a
maybe he'll
wonderful
hear
person.
this. I feel bad though, because one time I took a photograph of Bear Newcomb when he was just a little boy leading a mule across a stream. We were hunting, and Keith Reeves, we were kind of internet buddies, and he goes, "Hey, where'd you take that? That looks like a good place to fish. I know you're not a big fisherman, Clay." And I wouldn't tell him where it was.
That's good.
Sorry, Keith.
Hey, he would be there tomorrow.
Well,
I know Keith very well, and I have to keep some secrets too, or he will.
feel better.
He will be there.
I feel better. I mean, I wouldn't have minded him fishing there. Like we've never fished there one time in my life, but I was like, I'm gonna have to keep that one on the down low.
And if anybody understands that and respects that, it is Keith. He is a passionate voice. He has become the Ozarks Smallmouth Bass Alliance spokesperson.
That's great.
And he's got a great kind of where I don't want to say I've burned out because I haven't, but Keith has the technology, time, and all to keep that alive because we have to. There's a lot of people, if I can even get on any stump here at all, it would be the fact that smallmouth bass in Ozark and Ouachita streams. That's like the region from south of St. Louis all the way down into Oklahoma and down even into the Ouachitas. And I know you've done podcasts and everything on this, but there are definitely 3 distinct subspecies of smallmouth bass that we have only in this region. That right there is worthy of protection. And we can't just keep treating them like skillet food. I love to eat fish. People are like, oh, you're one of those. And I'm like, no. We were eating gator tail and bass and catfish down in Louisiana all last week. Okay, right. So I love to eat fish, and I'll eat you, as you can see, in any fish fry. Okay, I'll belly up and I'll get after it. So that's not what it is. It's about the fact if you want to continue to have them in numbers and quantity and size of any kind of sport fishery, you must have some conservation in there. And the way the current regulations are written, we will catch them out and we will kill them off faster than they can grow. They are so slow growing.
Why wouldn't the game and fish be like instantly responsive to that?
They're better than they were. Okay, I served on the Smallmouth Bass Task Force back in the 90s, and I helped write the regulations that we now have, which is a 2-fish, 14-inch minimum in blue ribbon streams, and we put 1 18-inch trophy status on like the lower Buffalo. And I think part of the Ouachita had that, and a few other streams that will grow trophy-sized smallmouth. There's more of us out there nowadays than there were then doing it. They still had what I think is a very archaic, old regulation in the Ouachita is you can keep outside the blue ribbon streams 4 10-inch smallmouth. Well, 10-inch smallmouth, I mean, once you fillet that, you got a fish stick. They're worth more than that. Fish alive, part of the system, a spawner. If you want to fish a stream, if you put a group of guys ahead of you, minnow fishing, crawdad fishing, and keeping fish, I'll guarantee you the damage that they can do will take years to replace. It will take years to replace.
I just wonder who's...
You ever fished a fished out stream? Okay, I just came from your wonderful hole here in town.
Yeah.
That probably has had pressure for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And I was so excited to see a few smallmouth swimming around there, but I'd love to run through there with some biologists and get an idea of just what is that fish count in there and what does the population look like. It had a feel that it's been pretty heavily used over the years, and the only way it can ever recover, if it will, is through some very serious smallmouth bass do not respond to regs as fast as like bass largemouth in a lake or in a farm pond or anything. They're just too slow growing. There's too many factors against them. Like because they try to spawn,
it's a smaller system. It's colder, probably.
Well, they say only 1 in every 3 years do we get a successful recruitment of smallmouth or a successful spawn. And there's just so many of us out there. The boom of kayaking and fishing, and then the game and fish has opened up accesses on places that and then advent of all these VRBOs, all of them are on a beautiful stretch of Ozark and Ouachita waters. So everybody comes in, and so there's no secret places anymore.
Except that place I got. That Keith
and
wants to
you
know.
hold that deer, man, and release cottonmouths in there too. And
okay, that helps.
Yeah,
keeps people away.
And that's where the Black Panther. That's the last place he lived. So.
Man, hey, it's. If there was a fish I was passionate about fishing, it would be smallmouth. Oh, yeah. And I mean, in the last 20 years, I haven't done a lot of it, but I grew up smallmouth fishing.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And I have a ton of respect for that fish. And it's now I'm not deep into that culture, but it's surprising to me that people would have any trouble just like turning back every smallmouth they caught. And I would be like so for that because I understand it. I mean, if you just listen, you understand it. That's the thing.
I take my grandson, my son-in-law. He is so passionate about smallmouth now, and he's come to live back in this area. And I take him to places that I fished when I was a kid, and we'll see a few here and there. And I'm like, you don't realize how crazy good this used to be. 50, 60, 100 fish days. And
wow.
And then like the canopy is gone because they've gravel mined it to death, or they've over cattled the pastures around it, just all kinds of habitat destruction.
Right.
And there's a few smallmouth here and there hanging on, and they think it's still pretty good. And I'm like, you have no idea how good it was and how rapidly it declined. And then I've got my grandson, and I'm like, what will he ever get to experience?
Yeah.
So that's the passion driving me there.
Yeah.
And it's in all types of wildlife. We're consumers of wildlife. We hunt, and everything, but we're the best conservationists too. We are, because we have the passion for it, and we want to see it survive,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Well, we need to talk about Ishi for a minute.
Oh, man.
Yeah. On these bear grease renders, we typically take a little bit of time to talk about the podcast that just came out. And so last week we came out with this podcast on Ishi. We titled it "The Last Stone Age Man."
Yeah.
And this is also where I kind of give a behind the scenes from, kind of like this polished podcast. But I want to say that when I first started, before I started Bear Grease, when I was asked by the company to write out 26 mock episodes, because we make 26 Bear Grease propers a year, right?
Yep.
Every other week. So 26. And they said, okay, well, if you're going to do this podcast, write out 26 things you're going to do.
Yeah.
And the first 5, I would say, was Ishi.
Wow.
I mean, so I've known about this story for a long time, yet it took me 5 years to finally pull the trigger on the story. And part of that was just that there was no rhyme or reason. I just always knew that, like, at some point I'm going to talk about Ishi at some point. But then it was more difficult than we anticipated finding experts.
Yeah.
It really was. Now, Gene Hopkins was incredible.
Yeah.
We typically like to have 1 or 2 expert guests, so you kind of get like 2 angles of the same story from maybe experts and different, just different viewpoints coming into it. But were you familiar with Ishi?
I had read the book about him. I knew of him, and we owe everything in archery that we know today pretty much back to that. I think I do know a lot about Ishi.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Well, Josh, what stood out to you?
Man, I think listening to Gene talk about, because I didn't know much about the history. You'd told me about Ishi before, but knowing the history about what he and the Yahi people endured living in the Mill Creek area there was just unbelievable, and the fact that just the idea of them being hunted and the way they lived during the concealment, that blew my mind. Mm-hmm. To think of a guy who lived with 3 to 4 other family members, hiding, walking on all fours to look like a bear, jumping from rock to rock, making small fires, and living. We got shows, like Alone, where people go out and they make it 80 days or 100 days,
and we think they're one in a million.
And they've got 10 modern things with them. These people were Stone Age, living out there, but also concealing themselves. So they were attempting to live as hunters and gatherers, but also as prey. And so just what that did to his psyche, you know what I mean? The way that they had to live is a pretty unbelievable situation. And it blew my mind.
You know, what was, I didn't really note it in the podcast, but most of the other tribes by that time, well, I mean, this would have been the last of tribes that weren't on reservations or hadn't, people that had assimilated into kind of just American culture. I was surprised that they weren't influenced by the technology of just modern American civilization. Like they didn't have steel. Now he did have. Think about all the Eastern tribes that, even back in the 1600s were using steel points, and it might have been the 1700s by the time they were doing that. But these tribes were quickly inundated with some modern technologies. But the Yahi were far enough west that that development just didn't get there till the mid 19th century, and then they were deep enough in a wild enough place that just people couldn't get to them, and so they just stayed hyper isolated. I thought that was the most unique thing, because if they were hiding out, the more I learned the story and saw how they were just on the cusp of civilization. Ishi could see the trains down the valley. He would have run into people. There were times when he was out in the woods and he would have met somebody, like those surveyors, and yet still they didn't have any of the technologies, other than Gene said that they were making stone points out of ceramics that they would find.
Right.
And then they were raiding people's caches and out farms and different things, but they were pretty much just taking food. And they probably had some degree of maybe some clothing or materials that they might have taken, but like they didn't take canned foods, which was really interesting. They would break in somewhere, there'd be walls of canned food, and they wouldn't take the canned food. No, I just thought that was interesting. Bear?
Yeah, I've heard of Ishi a lot through making bows and stone points. He comes up a lot because I think that he brought a lot of primitive technology into people's, he made stuff that people saw, and now people replicate a lot. There's a really specific style of arrow that they think came from him that he taught to the people there. And it's basically it's like a 2-piece arrow, and the tip comes off. It's you can put a spear fishing tip on there. You can put an obsidian point on there. But so I've heard a lot about Ishi just through a lot of the stuff, the primitive technology that he brought into the world. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you. It was honestly, it was kind of sad, because it was just it kind of brought to reality the actual, actually what the natives experienced whenever the Europeans came through and wiped them out.
Yeah.
You always hear about a mass genocide, and you're yeah, that's terrible. But whenever you actually look at it down to that specific of a level, to that all the way down to Ishi, he was just this lone native. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I thought it was an interesting podcast.
I think that's a good analysis, Bear, because we're all pretty comfortable. Just because it's the history of this country there's no other word. It's not a harsh word to use. It's just the accurate word to use, a genocide. Mm-hmm. That word is thrown around a lot politically.
Yeah.
Sometimes as a thing to it's the worst thing you could say. So I'm not trying to do that, but that's just what it was. But seeing the man, not somebody that got killed that we don't know. That's just an abstract idea of a human. But to actually see the man Ishi, and in this next episode we're going to see him even more, and you're going to see how he interacted with people in his life for a very short time after he came here. Because, spoiler alert, he only lived a few years after he came into San Francisco. And it's a tragic story, but it puts a human. And then the really, like, the wildest part of the whole story, and what this does is it humanizes the Native Americans, is that you see that this Stone Age man who would have fit perfectly in with people 10,000 years ago. I mean, he would have stepped in. Me and you step into a camp 10,000 years ago in these Ozarks. Apparently, people have been here for 10, 12,000 years. We would be pretty lost.
Right.
I mean, just as functionally, he would be able to do that. But he stepped into essentially a modern society with cars, planes had flown in the air, electricity, modern vaccines. And he was a man just like us. I mean, he was, I alluded to it in the final moments of the podcast where they said that he was generous and kind and relational. He was very interested in other people. He was, everybody commented on just how kind this man was. And he wasn't embittered, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
I mean, so it just, and that's what we always say. Like, when you think about anthropology and you look back into these deep stories of human antiquity, it's hard to imagine one of those guys being a pilot and flying a plane for Delta. It's hard to imagine them coming to your house for dinner and like being your friend, but they could have.
Yeah.
They were just like us.
Yeah.
They were, and that's this like gap that's hard to span. And Ishi did that. Ishi tells that story, and it'll be in the second episode. It'll be like more of that. What stood out to you, Dwayne? Just in all of it, if you.
Well, it wasn't really that long ago. We were talking like 1911. Okay,
Yeah.
My grandmother was born, about that time. So in my mind, that makes and then what I love is the fact that, archery probably was going to die out. I mean, why would you hunt with a primitive bow and arrow when modern firearms were starting to make their advancement? The scoped rifle was starting to come in, and higher powered cartridges, and then the bolt action rifle not too long after that and everything, which is a much more efficient way to take out a deer. Okay.
Yes.
But yet he and Saxon and, and that's why we bow hunt today.
Yeah.
I much prefer, even though it's a handicap in some ways, I don't really think it is if you adapt your techniques and your skills to what the weapon will do. But it brought about this whole rebirth or first time really we owe so much to him for what we enjoy to do today.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to me. And it connects you, I think. That's what I love about traditional bow hunting. It just takes you raw back to somebody like Ishi, and if he could do it, maybe I can. Not near as well, but I'm gonna try hard, and because they fed their families that way. They fed, as long as there was game. I mean, when I have read, the books that were written on him, and they said his skills, and we study gap shooting and various things. He just instinctively pulled back and knew where the arrow went and hit his mark. And then I think one of the things that I read was, up until then, there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge of tracking an animal. It's common today if you strike a deer with a projectile, a bow, and it's seldom going to just drop within sight. You have a responsibility to blood trailing and tracking, and that was something that was taught according to what I've read. And the waiting period, even and things like and reading the arrow, what kind of hit was made and those kind of things. Those are things I think that all go back to somebody who had that incredible knowledge and from his people forever, and we benefit from that today. So we're carrying on a tradition, and building on it. So, and I think that's why there's somewhat kind of I've never seen more of a revival. I think, Bear, you could probably talk more on this maybe, but as to people wanting to get back into just simple, draw it back and let it fly, with skill.
Yeah.
And so we owe a lot to this man and his genius, and the fact that when they brought him in, when he came in, they found him in that was a cattle sale barn type of thing or something, just huddled
stockyard.
So and I guess technically he could be considered a savage and treated as such, and yet somebody had compassion on him, and he didn't survive well. He did, but he didn't. They weren't. He was not immune to a lot of our diseases and things. And I think isn't that what eventually overcame him, and just too much exposure to things that. Didn't he even travel to England at one time, or am I thinking something different?
I'm not sure yet.
I think I read that I'll hold off on that.
That part hasn't been released yet. We don't know what's going to happen.
That was kind of celebrated him a little bit. Maybe I'm thinking Annie Oakley or somebody else in mind. I don't know. But anyway, I'm sure he was quite the, as he was put on display.
Yeah, he was. He was definitely put on display.
Yeah. But
what an anomaly that he even showed up. We'll talk about it more on this next episode, but like just the fact that the fact that he even wandered into town was an anomaly for his tribe, his culture. I mean, there was a lot of fatalism inside of many of those tribes that they observed, and I mean, anthropologists, Kroeber, this lady Theodora Kroeber, who wrote this really great book, kind of the seminal book on. There's a lot of books on Ishi. I think it's probably the one to read. Mm-hmm. She speculated that it was wild that he even came into town, like the kind of the culture of those people. A lot of times would have been just to kind of curl up and I mean that's a pretty big projection on a culture. But for him to come down and to even be to try to get help from these people that his entire life, aged 50 or so, was trying to get help was a wild thing. And then what he gave to us was...
He had to be just an amazing person to be around. I would have loved anything to, all of us.
Wow.
My biggest pet peeve when, I talked a little bit earlier that, I've put together a lot of travel trips to some pretty remote areas, Christmas Island, and I've been a few Central America fishing situations and stuff where primitive native people as our guides, and nothing is more gets on me than take clients who think of them as a second class servant guide. These men know there is not a bird that flies, a track in the dirt that those guys, they are such far superior to us on fishing and hunting skills in they're wild people, but yet they are so amazing, and because they grew up in it, they had to do it, and they're there to teach you if you're smart enough to watch them and learn. And I love them. I've got great friendships. I keep up with people, all over, and they have that wildness in them and that skills that are amazing. So,
what would be interesting to know is how good Ishi would have been in archery compared to everybody else, because he's one data point out of a whole tribe of people.
Yep.
Was he just average?
Yeah.
Maybe they would be chuckling that Ishi was the one that taught us. It'd be like, Ishi?
That's the guy?
Like, you should have seen, if you think Ishi was good,
he couldn't hit anything.
You should have seen this guy. Or if he was, and perchance, maybe.
Wow.
The fact to think maybe he was like the master or the greatest Yahi archer of all time is probably a stretch. He probably wasn't. Mm-hmm. He probably was somewhere in the middle. He probably was just average.
Yeah.
So you think about that and how good he was, skilled he was at napping, making arrows, making bows, what he did. So stuff we'll never know. Because the language barrier that we had with him was strong enough that, there was a lot they didn't get into. But they had about 4 years with him. And those 4 years were used as documented pretty well for the time period. But, well, Dwayne, it's been a pleasure to meet you. It truly has.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great great to be here. I feel among brothers.
Yeah, well, it's great to finally meet you
And to finally talk about fly fishing.
and finally talk about fly
Yeah, this
fishing.
is the closest we've ever gotten to Trout Grease podcast.
Yeah.
The Trout Grease podcast. Well, Dwayne's sales pitch on fly fishing was a
Compelling.
little more compelling.
I will
than,
take you sometime.
than these
You will
two
love
guys.
it. I think you would get hooked.
Oh, you know what? I actually was thinking about that. I give these guys a hard time about wanting to talk about fly fishing on here, and
Sure.
I know what it is. It's a self protection mechanism
You
that
don't
I
need
have
another hobby.
because I made a decision before Bear was born
Yeah.
that I couldn't be a fisherman and a hunter
Yeah.
and be successful, and so I just cut one off at the head, and it was fishing.
Yeah.
And so I have to. There may be a time when that changes, but right now I'm still in that mode. But no, I value anybody that's a master of their craft or just has they don't have to be a master, just have a passion for it, genuine love of it. And it's not. I'm going to say this one time, boys. Okay, I'm going to say it one time. I know fly fishing's really cool. I know it. I know
You guys
it.
get that?
I know it. I
Clip
know it.
that.
So I just like to give y'all a hard time. So no, pleasure, Dwayne. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.